And our Bible reading this week is going to be in Acts chapter 17. And so, if we're looking for the big idea in this section, I still think we need to keep thinking about Acts 15 and that controversy over the Gentiles. One of the things that's interesting to notice when you read through this chapter is they keep coming up. So in verse 4, a large number of God fearing Greeks are mentioned. And then down in verse 12, along with a number of prominent Greek men and women. And then in verse 17, again, the reference to God fearing Gentiles. So that work among the Gentiles that's now unhampered by the controversy from Acts 15 continues to go forward and continue to see the threads of that making its way through the things that we're reading here.
Right.
The easiest way, I think, to structure this chapter is just to work with the cities.
The three cities, right.
Yeah, so we've gone from Philippi, now we're in Thessalonica, verse 1. We get down to verse 10, and they're on to Berea. And then finally, Paul is sent on to Athens, and really Athens is the rest of the chapter. Notice toward the end of the chapter, we've got this sizable sermon.
Yes.
So periodically in Acts, we have speeches, and this is one of those places where we have a speech, and the speeches themselves are kind of unique and interesting. Aren't
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so what Acts has done is always gives a summary sermon as we kind of enter new phases. Acts 2, the gospel starts. And then you have Acts 10, Peter's sermon to Cornelius as the gospel goes to the Gentiles. Acts 13, as Paul takes it outside kind of Palestine in earnest as he goes up into Asia Minor, that sermon at Antioch of Pisidia. And now you have a sermon in Athens, which is kind of the most thoroughly Gentile world-class city that the gospel has gone to yet. And the other big thing is this is in Europe for the first time. The gospel has now left, kind of Asia and gone to Europe. And to Athens, one of the leading cities of Europe to this day, for that matter. And so, again, the gospel's progress, God likes to mark, or the Holy Spirit in Luke and Acts like to mark the progress of the gospel, the next phase, next era. And so Paul's in new territory. He's crossed into Europe now, and the gospel has. And so we get a summary sermon, and it's a different kind of sermon now, David. It's, before.
That's something interesting to
Yes.
watch for as you read the sermons.
Yes.
The way, while the fundamentals of the gospel are the same, the way the presentation is arranged
Right.
reflects the audience that's being
That's
worked
right.
with.
Yeah, this is a sermon outside of Palestine. This is not a synagogue sermon. This is not for Jews, even God-fearing Jews. And so it's a sermon where instead of quoting a lot of the Old Testament like he does, or like all the other sermons do, he quotes some of their own poets and writers to say,
Right.
this is what you guys have been looking for. And even some of your own writers have had thoughts that lead in this direction. I'm here now to tell you about this unknown God.
He's pulling things together in this sermon that would have connected with this unique
Absolutely.
audience, borrowing their idol.
That's right.
And their inscription to make his point. I also just thought it was really interesting. And now my mind is still going back to the Gentile thread that's running through here. He's in the midst of the Areopagus. That's where he's not in the synagogue.
Right.
He's in this very Gentile place delivering his speech. It's almost as though now that they've been unhinged from that controversy,
Yeah.
or untethered from it would be a better way of saying that, you just see this explosive outward growth. So new places, Europe, new locations. Here he's at the Areopagus, and we're seeing this spread of the gospel to the Gentile world.
Yep.
Also, hostility continues through here.
Well, yeah, that's part of why he gets run out of Thessalonica, run out of Berea, gets to Athens, is left there alone while he sends his entourage to go back and check on his, the Christians he's converted. But yeah, and then he's not run out of Athens, but he's mocked severely. This just isn't wisdom to Athenian philosophers that Paul offers them.
I read this and I think about people who give up on the Lord because somebody said something mean to them,
Yeah,
and or somebody didn't agree with them about masks.
yeah,
Yes, that was a shot. Look at what Paul had to endure. In fact, just read Acts and notice the trouble that followed the progress.
Right.
I mean, they just had to wrestle with lots and lots of stuff. And
These
frankly,
are the men who turned the world upside down.
and because they persevered, we need more perseverance in our day to do the work of God, even in the face of what is comparatively, sort of the minor setbacks. I think that's a good thought to carry away this week. So we read through Acts 17.